What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Angry Ginger Podcast, the show where we laugh at life's everyday chaos, celebrate the things we miss, and occasionally prove that we survived things our parents probably should have been arrested for. I'm your host, Chris, and I'm glad you're back. Now, I've got a question for you. Have you ever smelled something, heard a song, or seen an old commercial that instantly transported you back 25 or 30 years? One second you're standing in your kitchen, the next you're 12 years old riding your bike home before the streetlights came on, hoping your mom hadn't figured out you were late. That's what today's episode is about, because I honestly believe the 90s were the greatest decade to grow up in. Now, before anybody starts typing an angry comment, I'm not saying everything was perfect. I'm saying we were lucky enough to grow up in a weird little window of time that will probably never exist again. We played outside until dark. We had Saturday morning cartoons. Friday nights meant Blockbuster. You had to call your friend's house and pray that their dad didn't answer the phone. The internet made weird noises before it worked. And if somebody picked up another phone in the house, well, congratulations, your AOL session was over. No more Yahoo chat for you. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have social media. Nobody was filming every embarrassing thing we did. And thank God for that, because if TikTok existed when I was 16, I'd probably still be apologizing for all the shit I did. Today, we're taking a trip back to the decade of flannel shirts, mixtapes, Mountain Dew, arcade games, mall food courts, CD wallets, and some of the greatest movies and music ever made. We'll talk about things we missed, the things that somehow disappeared, and why being a teenager in the 90s felt like we were living through the last truly unplugged generation. And I want this episode to be as much yours as it is mine. As you're listening, think about the things that instantly remind you of growing up in the 90s. What song takes you back? What TV show did you never miss? What snack disappeared that you'd bring back tomorrow if you could? Send me your memories over at my email at angrygingerpodcast.com, or just hit me up on social media, because I have a feeling we're about to unlock a whole bunch of memories we forgot we even had. So if you're ready, let's rewind the clock. Throw a VHS into the VCR, hope somebody remembered to rewind it, and head back to the greatest decade to be a kid. This is the Angry Ginger Podcast. Kicked us out of the house after breakfast. The instructions were simple. Be home before the streetlights come on. That was it. No GPS, no Life 360, no texting every 15 minutes asking where you were. Your parents had absolutely no idea where you were. And somehow, we all survived. Can you imagine trying that today? Where's little Timmy? I don't know. He left around 9 o'clock this morning on his bike. Do you know who he's with? Nope. Do you know where he's going? Also no. When's he coming home? Oh, when the streetlights come on. Nowadays, that would probably trigger an Amber Alert. Back then, that was just called Tuesday. We rode our bikes everywhere. Not around the block. Everywhere. 5, 10, sometimes 20 miles from home. No helmet. No cell phone. No water bottle that cost $40. If you got thirsty, there was always somebody's garden hose. And let's be honest, that hose water hit different. Scientists can tell me all day that it tasted exactly the same as tap water, but they're wrong. That hose was serving gourmet water. Then there was calling your friends. Not texting, no Snapchat, no FaceTime. Actually calling the house. You dial the number from memory because everybody knew phone numbers back then. Then came the moment of truth. Please don't let their parents answer, because parents had all the exact same phone voice. Hello? Now you're terrified. Hi, is Joe there? Then he'd wait while they yelled across the house, Joe, phone! Half the neighborhood probably heard it. And if your friend was already on the phone, busy signal. That's it. Try again later. No voicemail, no read receipts, no wondering why somebody left you on red. Just beep, 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 beep. You accepted defeat. And don't even get me started on the internet. Kids today have no appreciation for what we went through. You clicked connect, and your computer started speaking Whale. For about 30 seconds, your house sounded like two fax machines fighting. And when it finally connected, you felt like you had unlocked the future. Until your mom picked up the phone. Connection lost. Every single time. Then there was Blockbuster. Friday night wasn't complete without walking the aisles for an hour trying to decide what movie to rent. And somehow, every new release was already gone. There'd be 15 empty cases sitting on the shelf just mocking you. So you'd settle for something you'd never heard of because your parents had already promised pizza. And if you forgot to rewind the VHS before returning it, you were basically public enemy number one. We even had to work for our music. You'd sit by the radio waiting for your favorite song to come on. The DJ starts talking over the intro, and you're yelling at the radio. Shut up. Trying to hit record at exactly the right moment. You timed it perfectly. Congratulations. You made just the greatest mixtape in human history. If you didn't, your song started with, and that was the latest from. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Looking back, it wasn't just the technology that made the 90s special, it was the freedom. We got bored, which meant we got creative. We built forts, played basketball until it got dark, made ramps for our bikes that were definitely not OSHA approved, and somehow convinced ourselves jumping 6 garbage cans was a perfectly reasonable idea. We made memories because we had to create our own entertainment. Nobody handed us a screen. Nobody algorithm fed us videos. If we wanted something fun to happen, we had to go make it happen. Maybe that's why those memories have stuck with us for so long. They weren't just things we watched, they were things we lived. And honestly, I wouldn't trade growing up in the 90s for anything. All right, now I want to talk about what really made the 90s special, the entertainment. And I don't think we'll ever see another decade quite like it. Because back then, everybody watched the same TV shows. There wasn't any Netflix, no Hulu or YouTube. If your favorite TV show came on Friday night at 7, guess where you were at 7? In front of the TV. Because if you missed it, you missed it. No streaming, no DVR, no, I'll just catch it tomorrow. You waited an entire week for the next episode. I still remember planning my Friday nights around TGIF. Shows like Family Matters, Step by Step, Full House, Boy Meets World. Oh, Boy Meets World. My first crush was Topanga. But whose wasn't, really? I mean, if you were my age, it was Topanga. That lineup was untouchable. And if you were lucky, mom ordered pizza, life was good. Then Saturday morning rolled around, cartoons. And I mean real Saturday morning cartoons. You'd wake up before your parents, grab a bowl of cereal that was probably 90% sugar, and spend hours watching those cartoons. Nobody interrupted it. Nobody said cartoons were available 24 hours a day. Saturday morning felt like an event. Then there were the movies. Think about the absolute monsters that came out in the 90s. Jurassic Park. I don't care how old you were, the first time you saw that T Rex, it blew your fucking mind. Then you had movies like Tommy Boy, Dumb and Dumber, Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison. Oh, The Sandlot was one of my favorites. The Matrix. You could quote these movies for years. Actually, people still quote those movies, and somehow they never get old. Now, I want to move on to a little bit about music because I don't think there's ever been another decade where so many different genres were exploding at the exact same time. You had grunge, alternative rock, pop punk, hip hop, country, boy bands, metal. One radio station could go from Pearl Jam to TLC to Metallica to Backstreet Boys, and somehow nobody questioned it. It was musical whiplash, and it was fucking awesome. But if I'm being completely honest, there was one band that completely defined my teenage years: Green Day. Man, Dookie wasn't just an album, it was a soundtrack. I wore that CD the fuck out. Then Insomniac, Nimrod, Warning. Every time they released something new, I was all in. There was something about Billy Joe Armstrong's writing that just connected to me. It was loud, fast, a little sarcastic, a little rebellious. It didn't pretend to be perfect, it just felt real. And I think that's why so many of us gravitated towards pop punk back then. It had energy, attitude. It was the kind of music you blasted in your car with the windows down because you wanted the whole town to know exactly what song was playing. You know, you found your favorite band when years later you're still listening to them. In fact, I liked Green Day so much that in 2011, I got a Green Day tattoo. Now that's commitment. People ask me all the time, do you regret it? Not for a fucking second. Because that tattoo isn't just about a band, it's about a time in my life. Every time I look at it, I don't just think about Green Day. I think about being a teenager, the friends, my summertime, driving around with the music turned all the way up, feeling like the whole world was in front of me. That's what music does. A song can transport you faster than anything else. You'll hear the opening guitar riff, and suddenly you're 17 again, back in your first car, back with your friends, back before mortgages, before back pain, before your knees sounded like the microwave popcorn every time you stood up. That's the magic of music. And honestly, I think every generation has bands they love, but I don't know if any generation had a soundtrack quite like the 90's. During my senior year of high school in 1999, I actually wrote one of my research papers on Green Day. Yeah, instead of writing about some historical figure or political movement, I wrote about a punk rock band. I covered how they got started, how they exploded onto the scene, and the impact that they had on music and pop culture during the 90's. Looking back, I guess that should have been included. This wasn't just a phase for me. For anyone that doesn't know their story, it's actually pretty incredible. Green Day got their start in the late 80's in Berkeley, California. Billy Joe Armstrong and Mike Dirnt were just teenagers playing local clubs and house shows in the Bay Area punk scene. They eventually teamed up with drummer Trey Cool, and together they formed this raw, energetic sound that mixed punk rock with catchy melodies. For a while, they were just another underground band playing tiny venues and building a loyal following. And then in '94, everything changed when they released Dookie. Nobody expected what happened next. That album sold millions of copies. Songs like Longview, Basket Case, When I Come Around, Welcome to Paradise. They were everywhere. MTV, rock radio, your buddy's car stereo. If you grew up in the 90's, you couldn't escape them. And honestly, I didn't want to. The thing that made Green Day different was that they took punk music, which had always been this underground anti establishment genre, and somehow brought it into the mainstream without completely losing what made it special. Suddenly, kids everywhere were picking up guitars. Garage bands started popping up in every town. Pop punk exploded. Without Green Day, I honestly don't know if bands like Blink 182, Sum 41, Good Charlotte, Newfound Glory, or Simple Plan would have had the same path into the mainstream. I mean, don't get me wrong, they didn't invent punk rock, but they absolutely introduced an entire generation to it. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely failed that paper because I didn't put as much effort into it as I probably should have. And rightfully so. I mean, why write a fucking paper on a punk rock band? Uh, I mean, that's just something that only I would do, I guess. And on that note, I guess you all know what time it is. It's time for another Ginger Grievance. I swear if my therapist ever finds this podcast, she's going to be so fucking mad at me. Anyway, last week I went on a little rant about ghosting, and judging by the messages that I got, apparently I touched a little bit of a nerve. Some of you have been ghosted, some of you admitted to doing the ghosting, and a few of you basically told me, Chris, that's just dating now. Well, I'd like to file a formal complaint because I'm starting to think that the dating universe has a personal vendetta against me. At this point, I don't think that I'm dating anymore. It's more, I guess I'm participating in some kind of social experiment. Let's look at my scoreboard here. Post divorce. One woman literally decided she'd rather be homeless than be with me. Now, I know relationships don't always work out, but homeless? That's a tough one to put on your resume. Imagine explaining that to your therapist. Well, he seems like a nice guy, but I think I'm just gonna roll the dice and go under an overpass for a little bit. That's total confidence building right there, don't you think? Then there was another woman who decided she'd rather move into a house that looked like every episode of Cops than move in with me. At some point, you got to stop asking, what am I doing wrong? And start wondering if the universe accidentally put a curse on you. Then, well, here's the one that really got me. The one that I actually cared about. This woman told me she was in love with me. And those are some pretty big words, especially post divorce. You don't expect to hear those. And then a week later, silence. Gone. No explanation. Nothing. At this point, I'm convinced ghosting should be an Olympic sport because some people are absolutely world class at it. And before anybody starts yelling, no, this isn't me saying all women are like this. They're not. I've got friends who are women and they have horror stories about dating too. Modern dating is just weird. Everybody's trying to figure everybody else out while pretending they're not emotionally invested. It's exhausting. But after everything that's happened, I've come to one conclusion. This has to be karma. It has to be. Because when I was a teenager in the 90's, and let me tell you, I was not winning any Son of the Year awards. I gave my parents attitude. I thought I knew everything, rolled my eyes, argued over absolutely nothing. I legit put my parents through literal hell. My mom and dad are sitting at home right now, listening to this, and probably laughing their asses off. Honestly, I wouldn't even be mad if God came down himself and said, remember when you mouthed off to your mom in 1996? You remember all those times that she asked you to do things and you said yes, but nothing ever happened? This is for that. And I'd be like, fair enough. Maybe I earned it. You know what I've learned though? You can't let those bad experiences make you bitter. You laugh, you tell the story, you learn what you can, and then you keep moving forward because if you don't, those people who hurt you keep taking up that space in your life long after they've left. And I'm trying to no longer give anybody free rent in my head anymore. And besides, if all this nonsense eventually leads to the right person, I'll have one hell of a story to tell. And if it doesn't, well, I guess at least you guys are getting podcast material out of it. Well, that's enough about my dating life. And I don't know about you guys, but I think I need a break before my therapist starts charging me royalties for this podcast. Let's move on to something a little more fun. Last episode, I introduced a brand new segment called Quickfire, where you send in the questions and I answer with whatever comes to mind first. No scripts, no Googling, no carefully crafted PR answers, just the first thing that pops into my ginger brain. And honestly, that should probably scare us all. If you got any questions for any future episodes, send it over through angrygingerpodcast.com or hit me up on social media. It can be about motorcycles, growing up in the 90's, music, food, life, date. Well, dating, I mean, I can give you my thoughts on my experiences, but don't expect any life changing advice. If you're feeling particularly evil, something you know is going to make me squirm, fair warning, if you ask, I just might answer. All right, let's see what we got this week. First question, Nintendo or PlayStation? You know, that's actually harder than it sounds. My first ever console was a Nintendo. PlayStation gave us Metal Gear Solid and Gran Turismo. Nintendo gave us Mario Kart GoldenEye. GoldenEye. I have to go with Nintendo. It's not even close. Favorite Saturday morning cartoon? Oh, for sure, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. No question. That show had no business being as good as it was. Best 90's snack. Oh, bagel bites and yoo-hoo because if you can put pizza on a bagel, you can eat pizza anytime. I love that jingle. Favorite 90's band besides Green Day? I would have to go. That's a toss up because I really love Stone Temple Pilots, but I also loved Sublime. Those are the two I'm still listening to this day. One thing you would bring back from the 90's. Oh, definitely 90's mall arcades. For real. I can't imagine how many friendships I've ruined due to Tekken. It's just ridiculous. The most overrated thing from the 90s. Oh, gosh. The band, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. If you don't agree with me, fight me. Oh, favorite Green Day album. That's easy. Insomniac. I love that one because after Dookie got released, they were shunned for going mainstream, thinking that they turned their back on the punk rock community. So after that, Insomniac was created to kind of piss in the faces of everybody that turned their backs on them. Definitely one of my favorite albums. And finally, if you could relive one day from the 90s or one weekend from the 90s, what would it be? Oh, man. I do have a weekend. It would have been my sophomore year in high school. A friend of mine dropped out to join the Navy, and then when he finished his basic training, he came back, and him and I took a whole 3 or 4 day weekend and traveled south to go visit a friend of ours. And I don't even know why my parents let me do this because I was only 16 years old. But we went and visited this friend and crashed in random people's homes 3 hours away and had the time of our lives. We drove around this small town singing at the top of our lungs in my car. We went and saw some movies. This was when, God, it was during the Titanic's first epic run in movie theaters. Uh, it was just an awesome, amazing weekend that I spent, and I met so many amazing people at that time. And that's the last time that I can remember that I actually met that many people and didn't want to leave. And that's my quickfire for this week. I appreciate everyone who's been sending questions in. Seriously, this segment is only as good as the questions you guys ask, so keep them coming. The funnier, the stranger, the more random, the better. And who knows, maybe next week one of your questions will be completely derail the show. Honestly, those will probably be my favorite episodes anyway. Well, that's going to wrap up another episode of the Angry Ginger podcast. I hope this one brought back a few memories. Maybe you remembered your first concert, or your first car, the first CD you ever bought, or maybe you're sitting there right now thinking, dang, I really do miss Friday nights at Blockbusters. The older I get, the more I realize it really wasn't the technology we had or didn't have that made the 90s special. It was the people, it was the freedom, not knowing that we were living through what would become some of the best memories of our lives. We weren't trying to create moments for social media, we were just living them. Looking back now, that's a pretty cool thing. Before we get out of here, I need your help. I want to know what's one thing you miss most about growing up in the 90s, or even in your era, if it was the early 2000s, the 80s, the 70s. I want to know. Maybe it was a TV show, a band, a video game, a snack that they don't make anymore, or maybe it's something completely different. Head over to my website or find me on social media and let me know. And while you're there, don't forget to send me your quickfire questions. The more random, the better. If your question makes me laugh or makes me question your sanity, there's a pretty good chance it'll end up on the show. And if you've been enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that follow button, leave a rating, share the show with a friend. Every download, every review, every person you tell about the show, it really does help. And I appreciate every one of you who've been along for the ride so far. Next week, we'll be back with some more stories, more laughs, and probably another Ginger Grievance about something that's been living rent free in my head. Until then, go throw on your favorite 90s playlist, roll the windows down, turn it up a little louder than you probably should, and for just a few minutes, be 17 again. I'm Chris. Thanks for hanging out with me, and remember, stay angry, but never forget to laugh at the chaos. I'm going to catch you next week. And oh, hey, before you take off, if you're enjoying the podcast and want to help support the show, head over to my website at angrygingerpodcast.com and check out the merch store. We've got shirts, hoodies, a few designs, whiskey glasses, made specifically for people who seem to attract just a little more chaos than the average person. So if your life is held together by caffeine, sarcasm, a little whiskey, and questionable decisions, congratulations, you are my target demographic. Go rep the chaos, support the show, and maybe grab something that'll make people ask, where'd you get that? Every purchase helps me keep bringing you new episodes, terrible life ideas, and stories that probably should have stayed private. Thanks for the support, guys. And now, get out there and rep my chaos.